year is 3479. The world is Arcanium. For 3 long years, the juggernaut that is the Unified Kingdoms of Arland has been fighting a war of attrition against the Volksraag Empire over the fate of the small yet strategically significant country of Korvia, while the rest of the world sits on the sidelines and watches. But, as with all great tactical maneuvers, the movement of a single piece can have great consequences for the outcome of the entire game.
Excuse me, Inspector.
What is it, Hardacre?
There's a gentleman from the Ministry here to see you.
What?
Says he's Lord Rushton.
Lord Rushton? As in the Home Secretary?
If you say so, sir. Never been a great follower of politics myself.
This particular politician pays your wages, Sonny Jim. Where is he?
Parked over there, sir. Says he needs to speak to you urgently, sir. He seemed, most insistent.
As if I hadn't got enough to do already with these bloody reporters. Sergeant!
Yes, sir?
Keep those bloody vultures away, will you? I'll be back in a minute. No, thank you, my lord. I never touch the stuff.
A sensible precaution, Inspector. A terrible habit, but certainly one I cannot seem to divest myself of.
As much as I appreciate the pleasantries, my lord, can I ask what brings a man such as yourself into such a cosmopolitan neighbourhood?
Cosmopolitan? Huh, a nice turn of phrase for such a godforsaken district, Inspector. And as for what brought me here, I should have thought that that was most obvious.
For a simple street altercation such as this?
A simple street altercation? My, how much the nefarious deeds of the lower classes are explained away.
Who are you, sir?
This, Inspector Clayton, is Mr. Clark of Her Majesty's Service.
The Secret Service, my lord? What brings them in such an insignificant case as this?
Insignificant to you, maybe, Inspector. We do not see it quite as simply. Please be so kind as to outline the supposed events, if you will.
The gentleman back there says he saw a lady being accosted by 3 men. When his companion intervened, one of the men shouted in a foreign accent and opened fire upon him. In fear for his life, the gentleman took cover, but alas, his comrade was less fortunate.
I fear he wasn't the only one, Inspector.
Sir?
The lady with whom the ruffians absconded was a Miss Elizabeth Granger, daughter of Jerome Granger, the noted industrialist.
Jerome Granger? Of Granger and Cogwin?
The very same, sir. The man whose factories provide a great deal of the armament for our forces in the war. As you can see, not quite as straightforward as you may have thought, eh?
Indeed not, sir.
So, a crime of opportunity, you think, Mr. Clark?
No, my lord. I fear that Miss Granger was the intended target of those men.
Why so?
A juicy target for a kidnapper, our Miss Granger.
Aye, with a rich father.
Naturally. But assume for a moment, if you will, that there is another reason for her abduction, aside from financial.
A man may do many desperate things for money, Inspector. He may do more for love of his country.
You think these effete scoundrels made off with Miss Granger?
Exactly as it would appear. Except that, after due consideration, my lord, I can only say that I detect the unmistakable whiff of imperial skullduggery behind all this.
So you think the Volksraag are responsible?
What? Now you think the Empire is responsible? Talk sense, man.
Ah, but it would make perfect sense, wouldn't it? Kidnap the girl, leave careful evidence hidden just well enough to lead us to think it's real, and point the finger in the direction of the Korvians, thus sowing distrust between our allies and ourselves, whilst all the while the true culprits remain at large, unpunished and unfettered. Very neat and tidy. Exactly the kind of fingerprint I expect they didn't want to leave behind.
But you don't think it is them, do you?
Yes, and no.
No riddles, if you please, Mr. Clark.
I'm sorry, my lord. I think it's more likely that they're working through intermediaries, hoping we will blunder around and come to the wrong conclusion, as your men very nearly did, Inspector.
I'm not sure I like your tone, sir.
Really? Then you must not have heard me when I launched into full flow.
You seriously expect us to believe?
Quite frankly, Inspector, I don't give a tinker's cuss what you believe.
Well, of all the...
My sources are quite reliable, and if they relate that Mr. Granger's daughter is in the hands of the Volksraag, then I, for one, are inclined to believe it to be true.
You tread a very fine line, sir.
Inspector, be quiet. Mr. Clark is one of our top men. If he passes such judgment on our situation, I will certainly vouchsafe his findings to my superiors.
Of course, Lord Rushton. Please forgive my hasty words.
Thank you, my lord. I only wish I bore more cheering news.
Some news is better than nothing at all, Mr. Clark. Her Majesty's service owes you a great deal.
Nonsense, my lord. My family have served the Westrian line for generations. What kind of a man would I be if I did not follow suit?
Indeed, Mr. Clark. Your patriotism does you credit, sir. However, it does leave us with rather a problematic situation to untangle.
With respect, my lord.
Durham? Speak up, fellow.
If I may be so bold, sir, I could not help but overhear your conversation. I believe you are owed a favour by a certain individual who may be perfectly suited to an endeavour such as this.
Of course. Good man, Durham.
My lord?
Nothing you need to concern yourself with, Inspector. Suffice to say, you may indeed have a way out of our predicament, after all. Enter.
Captain Nathaniel Hart, sir.
Ah, Hart. Good to see you. Take a seat, sir.
Will there be anything else, sir?
That will be all, Durham.
Very good, sir.
I can't fail to notice that you're still standing, Hart.
Well spotted, Rushton. I see your eyesight hasn't become any worse since we last crossed paths.
And neither has your tongue lost any of its rapier wit. Sit down.
I prefer to stand.
This isn't a bloody airship, man. Sit down, damn you.
I take it the burly fellows outside aren't here to discourage pamphleteers.
No, they're there to discourage cocky vagabonds with more mouth than brains from getting any clever ideas.
What do you want?
So it comes to this, does it? You wound me, sir, treating an old colleague this way.
Look, Rushton, I'm not your colleague, just some idiotic ex-naval officer who once made a glaring mistake and has been paying for it ever since. Now, what do you want?
You've been up to your old tricks again, I see.
Before you start, those Volksraag transports were legitimate targets of opportunity and covered under my letter of marque. Or would you rather the troops and ammunition they were carrying have got through to the front lines?
Don't be a fool, Hart. How do you think you got those map references and the itinerary of the convoy in the first place?
I thought it was friends in low places. Turns out I wasn't far wrong. You haven't answered my question. What do you want?
I need your help.
Ah, here it comes. I was wondering when you'd get around to it at last. All this old school chums talk was beginning to get rather tiresome.
Look, Hart, if I let them have their way out there, you'd be swinging from a yardarm by now.
What? And you'd be willing to risk the loss of your favourite ob-job, man? I hardly think so, Rushton.
Trust me, Hart. People like you are to a penny.
Then why aren't I already dead?
Live vagabonds are much more useful than dead vagabonds. Occasionally.
Try telling that to the poor bastards out there on the front lines.
We're not here to debate the finer points of military or sociological thinking, sir. I have a job for you.
I suspected as much. What do you want?
We have a missing girl. We want you to find her and bring her back.
A little old for that sort of thing, aren't you? Or has hanging out in governmental circles begun to rub off on you after all these years?
Your astounding arrogance never ceases to amuse me, Hart. But be careful. One day you'll cross that line, and nothing and no one will save you when that happens.
I'm still here, aren't I?
For now, yes. 3 days ago, the daughter of a prominent industrialist, Jerome Granger, was kidnapped off a city street right here in Caledon.
Rushton, where were your peacekeepers?
Our sources tell us that the snatch was designed to look like the work of Korvia mercenaries, but we suspect that there's more behind it than that.
Don't you always?
We believe that it was part of an attempt to force Granger to stop production of military materiel for the Allied forces.
You're serious?
Do I look even vaguely amused?
Volksraag?
Indubitably. No one else would be so bold or so arrogant. The attempts they made to get their mercenaries to cover their tracks were minimal. It's almost as if they wanted us to know it was them.
Doesn't bode well for the Unified Kingdom if it is.
What's that? Did I just hear the great Nathaniel Hart, master of the airways, say something that could almost be misconstrued as patriotic?
Don't mess with me, Rushton. I might be any number of things, but disinterested in my country isn't one of them.
So I presume you're interested enough to take the job?
That entirely depends.
On what? As if I didn't know.
On how generous you're willing to be.
I am not stretching your neck right now, nor do I have a squad of riflemen aiming at you. Be thankful for small mercies.
The ever persuasive tongue of the elder statesman.
So I trust we have an agreement?
I need supplies, fuel, repairs.
All arranged.
Then there's really nothing more to say, is there?
There's one more thing, Hart.
Yes?
You'll be taking along a passenger on this trip?
No one said anything about courier duty.
No, no one did. Now they are. You will pick up your passenger tomorrow at dawn. They will be at Limehouse Docks at sunup. Do make sure you aren't late, won't you?
And if I am?
I really wouldn't advise it, Captain. Now, good day, sir. Durham will show you out.